You want the truth? You're trapped. Not behind bars or in chains, but inside a prison you built yourself, brick by brick. Every time you held your tongue to avoid judgment. Every time you chose silence over truth. Every time you shaped your actions to fit someone else's expectations. That weight in your chest? It's not anxiety. It's not stress. It's the exhaustion of carrying a version of yourself that isn't real. You've been living as a character in a story written for someone else. Smiling when you wanted to scream. Saying yes when every part of you wanted to say no. Fitting into a mold so tight you forgot what it feels like to stretch. And the cruelest part? No one ever asked you to do it. You gave yourself away freely. Chasing applause that fades, approval that never lasts. You built your identity from scraps of other people's opinions and called it you. They told you control was power. That if you managed every detail, avoided every mistake, kept your world spotless, everything would fall into place. But here's what they never said. Absolute control is an illusion. A beautifully constructed lie meant to distract you from what actually matters. The more you try to control, the more disconnected you become. From presence, from feeling, from life itself. You spend so much time preparing for what might come. You forget to live what's already here. And that empty feeling you carry, even when everything seems fine, it's the echo of a life that isn't truly yours. Your success, your relationships, even your thoughts. They've all been filtered through fear, through image, through performance. You've built a version of yourself the world might love. But can you love it? The more you chase validation from the outside, the further you drift from your center. From that silent, authentic core you once knew, but now barely remember. Michel de Montaigne, writing from the quiet of his 16th century tower, saw with clarity what most of us still refuse to accept. Detachment is not indifference. It is the only path to real freedom. We're not trapped by external circumstances. We're trapped by our obsession with control, by our desperate need to be liked, to fit in, to avoid criticism at all costs. But what if I told you that the detachment you fear is actually the key? What if that rope you hold on to so tightly, believing it keeps you safe, is the very thing that's choking you, slowly, silently? Because here's the paradox: the more you try to control, the less control you actually have. The more you try to be liked, the less true you become. The more you resist change, the harder it hits when it inevitably arrives. Life was never designed to be controlled. Accepting that isn't resignation, it's wisdom. Life, in all its chaos and unpredictability, demands something terrifyingly simple. Let go. Let go of your need for approval. Let go of your fear of failure. Let go of the false identity you've crafted to survive the eyes of others. Now imagine, just for a moment, who you'd be if you weren't constantly afraid of what others think. What would you say? What would you choose? What would you finally allow yourself to feel? That version of you, the one unchained, unmasked, is not a fantasy. That's who you really are, or at least what's left of you beneath all the layers. But here comes the deeper fear. You're afraid to let go because you don't know who you are without the chains. You fear that without the roles, the masks, the expectations, there might be nothing left. And yet Montaigne whispers from across the centuries, only those who risk losing themselves ever truly begin to find themselves. When you release what you are not for the first time, you begin to see who you are. The freedom you long for isn't in a book, a quote, or a secret practice. It's not hidden in some future breakthrough. It's here, right now, quietly waiting for you to stop pretending, to stop needing others to approve, to stop clinging to control, to stop performing a version of yourself that was never truly yours. So tell me, are you ready to let go? Or will you keep gripping the illusion, knowing that each passing day pulls you further from your essence? This isn't an easy path. It's not the kind of journey that wins applause, but it is the one you desperately need. Because the choice is yours, and only yours. Will you remain inside the golden cage you built with your own hands? Or will you dare to leap into the unknown, toward a freedom that terrifies you, but might finally make you feel alive? Welcome to the philosophy of detachment, to the pursuit of an inner freedom that will shatter everything you thought you knew about yourself. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but the only thing more frightening than walking toward that freedom is staying exactly where you are. They taught you that achieving goals was the highest purpose. But what if most of those goals were never truly yours? What if the ladder you've been climbing was built by someone else? And now that you're near the top, what do you see? Is it the view you dreamed of? Or just a distorted reflection of someone else's expectations? We obsess over success, convinced that reaching certain milestones will finally bring us peace. But have you ever asked yourself, success according to whom? Maybe you've already checked every box, the right studies, the right job, the right relationships, and still, something's missing. Because if the story you're living was never yours to begin with, no amount of achievement will make it feel right. And that, perhaps, is your invitation. Not to climb higher, but to choose a different story entirely. And still, something feels missing. That tightness in your chest, that unease in the silence, that whisper at 2 a.m. It's not random. It's the part of you you've silenced for too long. The voice you buried beneath routines, expectations, and roles. It's your essence, asking to be heard. Montaigne, from his quiet tower centuries ago, discovered something that still threatens our illusions today. True success looks nothing like what they sold you. It's not a title, not a number, not the applause of others. True success is living in alignment with your nature. But how can you live in alignment if you've forgotten who you are? You've spent so long pretending that you no longer notice the strain. Each day, you invest energy into maintaining an image, polished, controlled, acceptable, that doesn't reflect your truth. But the mind is relentless. The body remembers, and sooner or later, something cracks. Here's an uncomfortable truth. As long as you hide behind personas, you will never know real peace. Anxiety, exhaustion, that gnawing sense of emptiness, they're not anomalies. They are the logical outcome of a life lived for others. But Montaigne saw something else. Most people would rather endure the discomfort of a fake life than risk the unknown of becoming who they are. It sounds irrational, but it's not. Comfort sedates, routine numbs, and in that numbness, we forget that security has a hidden price, the slow erosion of our inner freedom. So ask yourself, which group are you in? Are you one of those willing to risk the fall in order to feel alive again? Or have you made peace with staying asleep, as long as you feel safe? Because routine, for all its predictability, is a subtle anesthetic. You stay busy, distracted, functional. But what you don't see is that the longer you stay in the role, the more the role devours the real you. And eventually, even you forget what you sound like without the script. People often talk about freedom like it's easy, like it's just doing what you want, when you want. But real freedom isn't chaos, it's commitment. A fierce loyalty to your truth even when that truth costs you comfort, applause, or belonging. Freedom means disappointing others to remain whole. It means saying no when silence would be easier, It means becoming a mirror some people won't be ready to face, and then the fear arises. What if being true to myself makes me lose everything I've built? But here's the paradox. If you have to perform in order to keep something, it was never really yours. True relationships, the ones that matter, survive honesty. True purpose thrives in authenticity. Everything else? Just weight disguised as worth. You've spent so much time constructing a version of yourself that others could love. You forgot to ask if you loved it. You became fluent in hiding, in pleasing, in keeping things together. And over time, that version of you became the only one you knew. But your soul remembers, and it wants one thing: coherence. Montaigne understood this in his solitude. He taught that detachment isn't about abandoning what you love. It's about loving without being owned. When you cling to something out of fear, that thing owns you. When your self-worth is tied to approval, you become a puppet of perception. Here's the truth no one tells you. Most people fear losing what they have, because they've never dared to find out who they are without it. They cling to jobs, relationships, routines that no longer reflect them, because imagining life without those things feels like facing a void. But what if that void is where your real story begins? What if letting go isn't the end, but the beginning? So here's your question. Will you keep living the role that others chose for you? Or will you dare to step into the space where your own voice finally leads? Because only in that unknown space, beyond roles, control, and approval, can you begin to live something that's truly yours? Will you dare to walk that path? Or will you stay a spectator in your own life? Only you can answer that. Because this isn't just a philosophical journey. It's not just emotional. It's narrative. Because the way you tell your own story might be the thing that's either keeping you stuck or setting you free. To tell is to shape. Every time you speak about yourself, to others or within your own mind, you hold up a mirror. That mirror reflects who you believe you are, or who you wish you could become. Narrative is a tool for self-discovery. It's how the soul whispers its truth. Every character, every turning point, every internal monologue, they are metaphors for your fears, your desires, your contradictions. Fiction isn't escape. It's rehearsal, a way to try on different lives without risking the real one. And in times of uncertainty, like the one we live in now, stories become more than comfort. They become catharsis. But more than that, they offer you courage. They invite you to push against your limits, to explore what lies beyond the roles you've rehearsed for so long. And here's where it gets even more powerful. The stories you tell yourself shape how you live. They shape what you notice, what you believe is possible, what you dare to ask for. Many people are unknowingly living out inherited narratives. Stories of failure, of unworthiness, of roles handed down through family, culture, fear, and never once questioned. But what if changing the story you tell yourself was the first step to changing your life? This isn't about fantasies. It's about reclaiming authorship. Because as long as you don't challenge the internal narrative, you'll keep performing a script that was never really yours. So the question becomes, will you keep reading the story they gave you? Or will you finally start writing your own? Reclaiming your own story can be a deeply revolutionary act. Not just healing, transforming. Not just remembering, redefining. To stop seeing yourself as a victim of the plot and start seeing yourself as its author. This means recognizing your agency, the ability to reshape the past through new meaning, and to imagine a future beyond inherited expectations. And there's something else. something strange and very real. The story you tell yourself doesn't only shape how you live, it shapes how others respond to you. A well-defined internal narrative becomes a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. People feel it. Your relationships, your chances, your obstacles, they begin to mirror the script you carry inside. It's as if your identity is a silent screenplay, and the world, unknowingly, helps you act it out. That's why rewriting your inner narrative isn't just self-reflection. It's strategy. But let's go deeper. We are not linear beings, and our stories shouldn't be either. A meaningful narrative includes darkness. It includes contradictions. It includes changes of direction, unresolved tensions, and imperfect truths. The best stories aren't the ones that make perfect sense. They're the ones that leave you with open questions, moments of discomfort, and sudden flashes of clarity inside the chaos. That's where the beauty lives, not in the perfect arc, but in the human texture. And maybe the most poetic part of it all is this: we are always rewriting. Every conversation, every silence, every unnoticed choice. It adds a new sentence, a new nuance. We are perpetual authors of an unfinished manuscript, sometimes aware of it, often not, but always writing. And if you've made it this far, maybe you already feel the truth of it. You are not a background character in a story written by someone else. You are the one holding the pen. And the most fascinating thing? There are no final drafts here, only blank pages waiting, not just to continue the story, but to redefine what came before. That chapter you once labeled as failure, the one you tried to forget, rewrite, or hide, might someday reveal itself as the origin point of your transformation. Because what we call the end is often a threshold, a doorway disguised as loss, a fracture that lets the light in. Perhaps this is the greatest alchemy in human experience. Not to erase pain, but to transmute it. To turn wounds into symbols. To make peace with the scenes that didn't go according to plan, and allow them to become the foundation of something wiser, deeper, more alive. But here's the unexpected twist. What if living well doesn't require you to know exactly what story you're in? What if clarity isn't the goal, but presence? We spend our lives trying to define the genre we're living. Is this a comedy, a tragedy, a redemption arc? We want closure, we crave certainty, we chase labels. But life is rarely that tidy. It flows between forms, sometimes absurd, sometimes divine, sometimes both in the same breath. And maybe that's the point. There is something quietly powerful in surrendering to the not knowing, in allowing yourself to be rewritten again and again, by love, by loss, by truth. Because the moment you stop demanding the perfect plot, you become the author instead of the actor. And the most unforgettable stories, they rarely end in fireworks. They end in silence, in reflection, in a deeper question that stays with you long after the words run out. You're still writing. You always have been. Even in your silence, even in your confusion. Every choice, every turning point, every time you said, enough. Those weren't detours. They were the plot. And maybe the most poetic truth of all is this: you were never meant to fit into someone else's storyline. You were meant to write a story that only you could live. So if you're here, still reading, still feeling, know this: you are not broken, you are becoming. And this isn't the end. It's the page where everything begins again, but differently, with more honesty, more awareness, more soul. If this reached something inside you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so we can keep walking together through the pages ahead. And in the comments, leave me this phrase: I rewrite my story. That's how I'll know you made it here, that you're part of this growing circle of storytellers, conscious, brave, and awake. See you in the next episode, maybe without all the answers, but always with better questions and the courage to keep writing.